This is Joe Matarese. I got problems, and they need fixing.
I'm afraid, all right?
And you're gonna have to go through hell. Worse than any nightmare that you ever dreamed.
If I can change, then you can change. Everybody can change.
You're listening to Fixing Joe. Every week, I'm going to bring my real-life problem to this podcast. My friends, my listeners, my guests, my family, they're all going to help me. And trust me, I need it. I got tons of problems. I'm anxious. I have OCD. I have ADD. I'm narcissistic. I'm insecure. I got anger out the ass. And all these things come together to ruin my life all the time. I'm hoping this show can help. You're listening to Fixing Joe.
Hey, everybody. Another Fixing Joe. How are you? Great podcast lined up. We have our guest, Paul Virzi, Skyped in via, I don't know where, I never know the town you live in, Paul. Where's the town you live in? North Salem?
I live in the most northern east part of Westchester County.
That's North Salem, right? That's the name of the town?
Yes.
So we have Paul Virzi on the podcast. It's been a while. We got a lot of subjects to cover. Someone gave me shit because I don't know if you do this, Paul, on your podcast. I mentioned the plug type shit right at the beginning, and then there's always someone that goes, you come on your podcast and you say give, want, yeah, and they're annoyed by me because they say, oh, your wife's a doctor, and why are you asking for stuff? Like they think because my wife has a PhD, I'm a millionaire, and they think I'm spending over my means, which I am. But do you do at the top of your podcast? Do you do your plugs? Or do you go right into your podcast?
I talk about the sponsors. I say, the Virzi Effect podcast is sponsored by, the people that I are obviously on board with what I'm doing, and I just plug them, and then I go into my podcast.
Yeah, that's what I do. So, get the plugs out of the way, and then we can just talk, right? I mean, that's the way to do it. So let's get plugs really quick. If you want to make a donation, I think this is why that one fan gave me shit, is I said I was hurting for money when I was asking for donations, which it's like you can't be honest. I thought a podcast is a place I could be honest. I'm having a shitty financial summer, which we'll talk about on this podcast. I keep having gigs get canceled or almost get canceled, or bookers being dicks and doing weird shit. I've had a lot of shitty financial moves on the comedy industry done to me this summer. So I've been asking for good donations. So go to joematarese.com. You'll notice the new splash page. I'm about to have a new website done, and it's not completely done, but there's a nice little splash page up there, a one-pager, and it has all the stuff you need to make a donation. $20 or more gets you 2 CDs and a pair of earbuds from my sponsor, Tweaked Audio. What else do we have? We have live gigs, which, Paul, I don't know, are you coming to Levity Live tonight?
I am.
So you could see Paul and myself. I'm going to be headlining at Levity Live in West Nyack, New York, tonight in the Palisades Center Mall. That's Thursday tonight, 7:30 show. Go to joematarese.com. You don't even need to go to the Levity Live website to buy the tickets with the new splash page. Just click on the link right there, and it'll take you right to where you can buy tickets. Come on out tonight. Got a 7:30 show. I'll also be in New Haven, Connecticut at Joker's Wild, which I want to talk to Paul about in a couple of seconds. Joker's Wild is the 31st of July and the 1st of August. Go to joematarese.com and click on the link there for Joker's Wild, and you can buy tickets to that. Okay. What other plugs? Jeez, there's crazy stuff. I'm starting businesses now. You can, if you're interested in hiring me to do some distress painting or painting in your house, you're gonna laugh, but it's up on my Facebook page. Some of the shit that I've painted is up there. Put a little professional proposal with all my work. Go check out my Facebook page. It's the Joe Matarese on Facebook, and check it out. If you want to hire me, I can do it, and I can ship you when I'm done. I actually got hired already to do somebody's California king size bed. All right, we'll get to more plugs at the end of the podcast. It's just too much at the top. Virzi, listen to Paul's podcast. He does it every week. It's called the Virzi Effect, and it's blowing up. It's a great podcast. I'm sure they can listen to it on your website or on Podbeam. Is that where they can listen to the Virzi Effect?
Yeah, the Virzi Effect, All Things Comedy, Podbean, iTunes. Yep.
Yeah, go check it out there. Mine's up on All Things Comedy also, but for some reason they're having a problem, and it's the newest podcast for me is 5 months old on the All Things Comedy website. I have no idea why they're trying to fix it. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about. It just took us an hour to set up Skype, by the way. Fuck you, Skype.
Well, because you know what it is with all of these things. Like it's like if it's not broken, every time you go to something and you think you have a password and you think you have the username and you're all excited to do it and you're ready to do it, they're like, oh, you need to update the version to 9.1. Did you do that yet? And it's like, no, I didn't.
It's true. As soon as it works, it doesn't work. As soon as you figure out the old one, here's the new one. I don't ever, with my iPhone, I don't know if you do this, I don't ever download the new software. No, I got it. It works.
No, I agree with you. It's so annoying. It's like you can't get into this if you didn't update. Did you install the new? And it's like, no, man. You know what I mean? Like everything is, did you install the new version? And they keep changing versions. It's like, this is working.
Right, exactly. I was trying a bit last night that I'm officially at an age where when my phone's broken, I just hand it to anybody who's 20 who's in front of me. And I just go, make this work.
That's great.
And I said, unless my email goes whoosh, I don't think it went. Like if I don't hear the whoosh, it didn't go. I don't know. I do. And I used to be savvy. I used to be good at all electronics. I've said this on my podcast before. I was the guy that came to your house to make your VCR work or to hook your HDMI cables up. I was the guy. But nah, not anymore. It's just it's gone to a whole nother level. And I'm not going to the Apple store to take some school or a class on how to use iMovie. If I can't figure it out on my own without directions, I'm not.
Oh, I look at it like this: if I'm taking money out of my wallet, I'm not. That should pay for everything. I'm not doing anything else. I'm buying it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're comedians. I don't think we know how to sit down and read directions and figure it out. Do you ever go on YouTube for anything and like try to learn how to do something? You ever used it for
you know
that?
What? I got a lot. No, I know a lot of people that do that, and they'll like. Yeah, I think one time, it was funny, one time I did to see how to set up my cigar humidor. Like, so
you have a humidor?
Yeah, I got a humidor. So
what does a humidor do, actually? It makes the cigars fresh and you just keep them in there forever?
Yeah, well, the humidor has this little filter that you soak in water, and then after you soak it in water, it sticks to Velcro on the top, and when you close it, it kind of just keeps the box moist and it keeps the cigars moist. So I wanted to just see, like when I got the box, a good friend of mine, extremely funny and talented comedian. You know him too. Great friend of mine, Giannis Pappas. For my birthday, Giannis bought me a big humidor because he's like, man, you smoke so many sticks, you got to have a humidor. So he got it for me, and it was like a nice one.
That's a good gift.
Yeah, it was a great gift, and it came with like a cigar holder and a cutter and an ashtray and the humidor. But like, I didn't know how to I had set it up, so I went on YouTube and I was just watching all these guys that love cigars, just like so into it. It was cool. That's the only time that I've really done that. But yeah, so to answer your question, yes.
I bet you're a good gift receiver. I bet you did you tear up and I'm a terrible gift receiver. Like when you give me something great, I open it like it's not great. I don't know why. I get it from my dad. My dad's terrible at receiving gifts.
No, there's nobody worse at receiving gifts than my dad because he actually shows his displeasure to you.
He's too honest.
Like, he's way too honest. Like, he'll just, like... I remember one time I got my dad a book. It was Rodney Dangerfield's autobiography, and I thought it was a cool gift because when I was a kid and Back to School came out, my dad actually took me to see Rodney at Radio City, and I'll never forget it. What's the guy's name? Nelson? What's his Nelson?
Bob Nelson.
Bob Nelson came out and opened, and then Dangerfield came out, and Back to School was a hit. So I figured my dad wants to. I got the book. I love the book, so I got the book from my dad, and I remember handing him the book, and as he was getting the gift, he didn't know what book it was. He just knew it was a book, and he just goes, "Oh, what book did you get me?" Like with this, like almost like disappointed that it was a book. I was just like,
"Oh no, he gave me a reading."
Oh yeah, I remember one time, just fucking hilarious. My dad gave me something, and I think like it was something he used and then didn't want it anymore. I think.
My dad is the king of too honest. Like,
Well, you get that. You have that.
I have that too, right?
You 100%. I've watched you shoot yourself in the foot because of it. That's why you get into it at comedy clubs, because you're the only guy in the world that I would get to a comedy club and like first time out, just go on stage like owners, bookers there, and you would just go, these lights, Jesus, who set this up?
Yeah, it's almost to the point where I have to pull the club owner or booker aside before I go on and give him a speech like, "Hey, man, just letting you know in advance, I'm going to probably make fun of about 6 things about your establishment, and I don't mean it. I love it here, but it's how I get comfortable on stage. I have to say things about the bathroom fan that was too loud, or I love when you go to these shitty gigs where they don't put the mint. They don't have one of those mints in the urinal. They have ice. You ever been?
Oh yeah.
I did a gig once where they had the ice in there, and I made fun of that for 10 minutes. Like, so hopefully, clubs
So you
don't
get
get
all
pissed.
this. You get all this from your dad, right?
I must. So my dad recently, my mom and dad gave me shit for like a year because we didn't have dining room chairs. We had this expensive Restoration Hardware table, no chairs. And they kept saying shit. When are you going to get chairs? When are you going to get chairs? We're like, we're looking for the right ones. We don't have that much money right now. Chairs are expensive. My wife finally picks out chairs. I send a picture of them to my mom and dad, and I text it to them, and they don't text back. So I'm like, you never know with parents. They might have just not known how to open a picture. So I called them. I go, did you get the text of with the picture of the new chairs? My dad just pauses. He goes, yeah, we got it. Got to be honest.
Oh boy.
I was underwhelmed. He goes, and so was your mother.
Oh my.
I'm like, but I'm finally at a point in my life where I went, that means they look good, because you don't have good taste. I said this to you recently, like with movies. He goes, you got to go see Ted 2. And then I look at the reviews, it gets like a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, and then I think you told me you saw it and said, it's all right. And I go,
no, I mean, the one thing I've learned though is as good and accurate as Rotten Tomatoes can be, they could also be as bad. Because Rotten Tomatoes has shit on a lot of movies that were really decent movies. And I'm noticing that Rotten Tomatoes has like a bias against certain things. Like if you notice, they're consistent with the same types of movies. So you can't always go with them. And I'll say this, Ted 2 was definitely not Ted 1.
Right,
and,
sure.
And, no. I mean, the first Ted was classic. Ted 2 had like those 4 or 5 like insanely laugh out loud moments.
Right.
But it was just, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're watching a movie about a teddy bear. So what are you going to, you know what it was? Ted 2 to me was more like an episode of Family Guy, even more than the first one. It was like a regular episode of Family Guy.
Right.
I hear.
Did they veer off into parodies on a TV screen and shit like that?
They did like certain stuff they did that would definitely like the show. But I know what you're saying as far as like when certain people don't like something. Like you ever talk to somebody and they think a comedian's great, or they
suck.
Yeah, they'll just be like, "Oh my God, did you so and so?" And you're like, you could tell that it's just not your type of deal. You know?
Well, I guess. That could be a premise on stage. It probably work where you have a friend that you go you always call it going oppo instead of opposite. You call it going oppo. You go opposite. Like he likes it, it sucks. And if he hated it, you got to go see it. Like that's how I am. Like my friend Gene that I grew up with, who's been on my podcast. He's one of my best friends that I've known since high school. If the camera moves around, like if the director's trying to get artsy, he hates it. Like he's like, dude, the camera was moving. Like how like The Office has that style with the he can't stand that. If it's stylish and they're zooming in and out of nowhere to look like a documentary, but it's not a documentary.
Yeah,
it's like, this is a fucking piece of shit. I remember I saw a movie with him. What was that movie with Jennifer Aniston? was really an older one. I think it was called something Girl. There was a scene where somebody like was having sex and a dog kept barking in the background. It was a classic scene in the movie. I forget what it was called. Something Girl, and she was the lead in it. And he must have. I go with Gene, and it was an artistic movie, and he must have laughed 40 times.
Yeah.
And we leave the theater. He goes, "Boy, that was a piece of shit." I go, "You laughed 40 times. That's a win. What are you talking about?" Unless you were laughing at how bad it was, which you weren't. I mean, that was a funny movie. All right, we got to get to the list. I got so much stuff to talk about on this podcast, and so much stuff that I didn't even watch. Like, I'm sure we're going to talk about Caitlyn Jenner, and I don't even know if I want to ask you because I have it on my DVR. I want to watch the ESPYs. Did you see it?
It's funny you should say that because last night I went down to the city. I did a spot, hung out for a while, got home, went online and did something, and I saw LeBron. I saw a clip of LeBron James present an award to that Devin Steele guy, the guy on the Bengals whose young daughter has cancer, and it was really emotional.
That was amazing. I saw that.
Yeah, you saw that. So I watched that, and then as I'm scrolling, I just see, Bruce Jenner dressed in the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing, and I see him up there, and I was like, I gotta watch this. I was like, I gotta watch it.
Sure.
So it was like 27 minutes when the presenter came out, and then they show the whole story. They did a piece on him, which was about 20 minutes, and then he comes out with this like almost 10-minute speech, and
they did a 20.
The whole thing the whole Arthur Ashe Award of Courage, from when the presenter came out and talked about it to the piece they did to his speech, the whole thing was 27 minutes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were adding it up like it was an hour. Okay.
No. Just
who presented it?
The whole Bruce Jenner piece was 27 minutes, and it was.
Who was the presenter?
The presenter was that Abby Wambach. I believe she. I mean, I don't quote me on this, but I think the reason why they had her come out was because she's. I think she's might be gay or whatever, but she was the women's soccer. U.S. They just won the World Cup.
Was she the girl?
She was one of the main. One of the main ones. She was
the girl that got the 3 goals. Was she the hat trick girl?
No. The girl that got the 3 goals was a younger girl from Jersey. This was like the veteran. Like, she's a veteran. She's been on national team for years and years, and she finally got it. She's older. She's like,
Okay.
Yeah, so she came out, and she presented it, and she was like, I hope this story should touch you the way that it touched me, and blah, blah, blah. And then they just showed a piece that they did. And they really did a good job of it because they broke down. They showed him in the Olympics, coming close in 72, and then how much he dedicated his life to getting it in 76, and how just he was like a man's man and a guy's guy, and like America needed something like that at the time, and he was it. And then like while they're doing it, they're showing him sitting on a couch as Caitlyn Jenner, and it was just really interesting how they did it. And what he said was amazing. He was just talking about how kids are being bullied, kids are killing themselves, and like the transgender thing is like kids are being murdered, and it's really like rough. And then he started naming some people that either committed suicide or are going through something, and he said the one that sticks out was this one guy that committed suicide, and it was like only a couple days before his Diane Sawyer thing came out, and he was thinking, wow, would that have changed anything? And he just kind of making people aware, but his message was nice. Like, I got something funny to say afterwards.
Okay.
But let me just say this. He said, like, if we could treat people with respect and as human beings and let people be who they are, like, the world would be better. And the way that he did it was really nice. And then he got emotional when he talked about his family. But, dude, on a humorous end of it, right, I was just like, they started panning through the crowd watching him. And everybody's into it. But, dude, there's a picture of, like, A-Rod's face. And he's just looking at him. And he's just kind of like, you could just tell in his mind, he's like, what the fuck? And, like, I'm watching it, and it's just like, this guy just, like, in a big dress and, like, his makeup. And it's really, like, and I'm not trying to sound like a fucking ignorant moron, but it's really, like, when just seeing him sitting there, knowing he's got a dick and he's dressed like that, it is humorous, dude. Like, it's hard to really, like, when you're watching it, you're like, dude, this is, like, a guy, he's, like, such an athlete. And then another thing that was funny, he was like, you could pick on me, it doesn't matter. He's like, but show these kids respect because they don't know how to deal with it. He's like, if you couldn't pick on me, he goes, because I was MVP of the football team. And he's standing there looking like gorgeous. It was fucking hilarious.
Well, that's the thing.
And I'm not gonna lie, he looks pretty. He looks like they really like. He looks good.
I know. I said that day one when I first saw him as Caitlyn Jenner, and it's probably a hacky joke now, but day one on stage, I said, "Listen, if you're like a 2 or a 3 as a guy, and you're a 10 as a woman, make the move."
Right.
Like that. He looks amazing. He looks great, but that's the thing. Also with comedy, you find that emotional is very close to funny. Like even that guy who made the speech, you said the Cincinnati Bengal guy whose daughter is living with cancer and the cancer's in remission and all this kind of stuff. He made a joke that got a big laugh, and those are my favorite kind of laughs.
Oh yeah, when he talked about the wife's wedding.
Yeah, he's like, don't go too crazy.
He's like, I love you, and I wasn't able to hug and kiss you and hold your hand, and you knew what I was going through, but I want you to know I'm going to give you the greatest dream wedding. He goes, but don't go out and start going crazy with the money, and that got a big laugh. That was great. And you know what? That's comedy. Like that's, it's like when Robert Schimmel told a story about his son who was dying of cancer, and all he wanted to do was drive a car, and he finally got him to get in the car. And the doc, you know that story, right?
No, I don't know it.
Well, Robert Schimmel, rest his soul. Somebody said they saw him at Caroline's, I guess not too long before he passed, maybe a couple years. And he tells a story about how in the 80s, or I think it was the 80s or not early 90s, maybe 80s, he had a 10-year-old son who was very, very sick with cancer, dying in a hospital. And he's telling a story about how all the kid's dream ever to do was to drive a car. So all the kid wanted to do was drive a car. So he says to the doctor, I want to take him out of here, and I want him to drive a car. I want him to drive in a car and everything. And the doctor's like, listen, man, he's in really bad shape. He's dying. And he goes, Doc, the kid's dying. He goes, I want to give him this. So they fucking let the kid get out, and Schimmel takes him. And they kind of go to like a deserty dirt area, like where there's nothing around.
This is his kid or just a kid?
No, his kid.
His kid. Okay.
This is from the story that I was told, that he had a kid younger, and his kid. So he takes the kid in the car to the desert, or everything, and he just lets this kid. He sets it up where the kid can reach and everything, and he's sitting there, and he's like, and the kid's driving, and he was like, and the look on his kid's face and the feeling. He goes, it was one of the most amazing feelings. He goes, but then like he starts like hitting like they're in the dirt and they're in the thing, and he starts hitting things and he starts getting wild, and then Schimmel just goes, and the only thing I could think about is, why didn't I rent a fucking car? And it's like, but it's what you said. It's like those heartfelt stories, like when it like you're almost, as an audience member, going, how can this get funny?
Right.
Like, where is the funny? This is so serious, and then you hit it, and it's like that's perfect, dude. And I'm not going to do the whole joke, but Doug Stanhope, I would encourage everybody. I just saw it. He's got it on Netflix. Doug Stanhope's got a bit about his mom wanting to commit suicide because she was dying, and like do an assisted suicide. And he goes, all right, well, just come to my house and we'll set you up comfortable and just let me know when you're going to do it. And he just talks about how they were joking throughout the process and all this, dude. And it's one of the most, if you really think about what he's saying, it's so sad, but then the way he does it, it's so brilliant. And like, that's what I love,
Yeah, so do I. That was my other question about the ESPYs. I don't know, how long have the ESPYs been going? How long? 20 years?
I think the first ESPYs was in like, I remember Norm Macdonald got in trouble because his was so brutal, how mean he was and stuff, and they wanted a comedian at the time. I want to say that was around like 97. So I think it's probably mid 90s to now. So yeah, you're looking at like, probably 20, maybe like close to 20 years.
Right. Now, have they always, because I'm watching last night, I don't know if I'm the only one that was thinking this watching the ESPYs last night. I'm sure I'm not, and I'm sure this is going to be talked about probably on the news today. It was like every story was like some sort of sad story. You got the woman who lost an arm, followed by the kid with cancer, followed by Bruce Jenner. It was just like one sad story after the other. It's like, and I don't remember the ESPYs being that, and all of a sudden it is, and you wonder if that's, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but is it to grab viewers? What is the reason that it's this super heartfelt thing? Why can't it just be athletes winning awards? What happened?
I have a theory on that, and I think you're right, but I have a theory on why they do that. Number one, I think they do it for two reasons. I think that it's only, you can't just keep giving awards out to athletes. I think that they do want to make it, they do want to give you some more deeper, because everybody has the idea that sports and jocks are just this fuck guy runs around like dumb jocks in stupid sports, and what about the people that don't want sports? I also think, though, you get a way bigger audience because people have gone through tough things like that. I also think you get more of a female viewership. I think that people want to understand that these athletes are more human than we think. I think that that's what they go for, because the casual sports viewer, I think the casual sports viewer just looks at it like, oh, it's a game. Who won? Oh, who won that game? I watched for a little bit. I think that they're trying to pull those people in to say, hey, this guy may run a 4.340 and be the most incredible guy, but you know what? His daughter's sick, or like you've gone through somebody that's sick. I think they just want to get everybody and let everybody bring more people into sports. That's why I think they do it.
Right. I agree with you. And sports, one of the reasons I love watching sports is it's like why I like certain comedy that has emotions. Sports has it built in. Like when something great happens and you catch it live, it's way different than if you watch it on YouTube or something. Like if you happen to be at a no-hitter, which I've been to, I mean, it's like you're almost crying as you're cheering. It's just it's magical when you see that something amazing happen. Maybe this kid's gonna win the British Open this week. Like that, I'm gonna watch it. It's gonna be amazing if this kid at the age he's at is gonna win the three big majors.
Yeah. You want to know what's funny about a no-hitter or a perfect game? Listen to this. When David Wells pitched a perfect game for the Yankees, my buddy started dating a girl, and he took her to the game.
Oh, no.
And she didn't know what's going on, so she's looking around going, why is everybody into this? It's so boring. Nothing's happening. And he just looked at her and goes, do you understand what the fuck is happening right now? Like, he couldn't have been at that game with a worse person. Because all you're thinking about is how
he was at a perfect game with a perfect moron.
Yeah, how great would it be if you're at that with a friend, a brother, somebody that you're so close with that can appreciate it. Instead, you're with some fucking chick who has no idea what's going on, and to her it's boring because the ball's not going anywhere. Oh my God, it's brutal.
I was at Dwight Gooden's no-hitter with my brother, who was at Yankee Stadium for the first time.
Oh, that's awesome. I remember that game. That was in 96.
We couldn't believe it. Was just incredible. We're both huge baseball fans too. So he's at Yankee Stadium for the first time. We moved down and we're sitting real close to home plate, and to witness it was insane. And
I remember they carried him off the field.
They carried him off, and he did that. He flexed to the whole crowd. It was incredible.
That's awesome, dude. I was a junior in high school, and I remember going to school the next day, and everybody was talking about how awesome that was, especially with all the stuff he went through. You were at that game. That's there. Awesome. That's a great one.
And it was actually an accidental being there, so it had a backstory to it, which was I went to opening day that year. I don't think I'd ever been to an opening day.
Opening day at Yankee Stadium?
Yes, I went to opening day. And it was one of those weird Aprils where it snowed, but they didn't cancel the game. They played through flurries, and it blew. It was freezing out and snow flurrying. And I guess for some reason they felt bad for the people that stayed and watched the whole game.
Oh, so they gave you the tickets.
They gave us an option. They gave 3 games to pick from, and I just said Seattle's good. That was when Seattle was good, and I go, let's go. I picked the Seattle game, and then I got lucky. I got tickets to the no-hitter.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. What the hell? I was just going to say something about the ESPYs. Son of a bitch. I stink. I got to get on the ADD meds, which are coming soon, by the way. I took a neuro, what is it called? I took some sort of 5-hour neuropsychological test about 3 weeks ago, and I got the results last week. And now I'm able to go back to the neurologist with the results and get ADD meds if I choose. It was funny. The guy thought, or the woman who gave me the test thought I might have had an alcohol problem. Because there was a 360 question section in this test. 360 questions. She goes, it won't take you that long. I'm like, how? That's 306. How's that not going to take long? And when we came back for the results, she goes, I think you sped through the questions because it's coming out here that you might have an alcohol problem. And I go, no, you're probably right. And she goes, what do you mean? And my wife was with me too. And I go, well, she goes, it seemed like you thought that you self-medicate. And I started laughing, and I've been doing this on stage too. I'm like, who doesn't drink to feel better? That's self-medicating, right? Who just drinks to drink? Like I've been doing, it worked really well last night. It'll probably never work again. I go, my life sucks. And I did like a sip, and I go, feel great. Or
right.
Better now. I go, my kid shit his pants. Who cares? Like I was doing all these different like things like bad and then better after the sip.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean you have an alcohol? Would you say that you drink to self-medicate? Who does not?
I mean, I think that there's certain people that don't. There's certain people that literally will sip a beer at a social occasion just because it's kind of going on, and they do it. And then I think there's people that really like to get loose. But I got to be honest with you, man. I think they say 80% of people have a drinking like 80% of people like to feel buzzed. And if you don't like to feel buzzed, you're full of shit. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe there is a difference between liking to feel buzzed and I'm in an awful mood right now, I'm going to have a drink.
Right. See, that's different. Like I've never done that.
I have.
I've never been like, and I don't understand that. Like even when that guy in the SB said when his daughter had cancer and he just went crying and all he wanted to do was go get the biggest bottle of vodka and drink it, but he couldn't. I've never had that thought. For me, I want to drink to have a good time. So like, I'm like, oh man, I'm meeting my buddies. I haven't seen them in a while. We're going to argue sports. It's going to be great. Smoke a cigar. Let's drink. I'm never like, man, fuck this. I can't stand this shit. Marriage problems, money problems. I'm just going to drink it away. I've never done that.
Really? You've never had like a really shitty set at a club and then drank afterwards?
No, I'd rather not drink. I'd rather I sit in that and I try to deal with it that way. I like to drink after I have a great set.
Oh, okay. So you're a fun, like, oh yeah, I want to make the fun last.
Oh, I'm doing a new bit right now. It's kind of like a new opener that I'm doing where I go, I'm the type of guy, I'm not an alcoholic. I just never want the party to end. I'm the type of guy that I'm always like, I'll go 2-3 beers tops, and then by the end of the night, I'm like, yeah, let's get heroin. Fuck it. Like, I'll go to Vegas right now.
You are that guy.
I am that guy. Like, you know me, dude. Like, I would literally, like, if I was feeling good enough, you could probably talk me into going to Vegas. Like, that night.
Like, driving there.
Like, you'd be like, dude, let's just fly to Vegas for 2 nights. We'll call the wives when we get there and say something crazy happened. And I would actually contemplate it.
Yeah. I told you, I think, when I first met you, that you're my comedian version of the guy Gene that I explained earlier that I grew up with. He was that guy. Let's go. Or let's go to Gino Steaks was a popular one. Like, we grew up right outside of Philly. So, like,
I love Gino
We
Steaks.
come out of a bar or clubs when we were younger, at 2 or 3 in the morning, and he would just look at you and go, Gino Steaks. And and then we would just go over the bridge. Like, it was... which is another thing that I want to bring up, and I know this is a bad subject to bring up with Paul Virzi because you're a little a hypochondriac with your health.
Yeah.
This just happened this past week, and he doesn't listen to my podcast, but maybe I can tell him to listen to the podcast. One of my closest friends that I grew up with, and it makes me realize that I'm at that age now. I'm 48. He's 48. He was a healthy guy like me, skinny, pretty in shape guy. Sends me a text early in the week. He goes, I don't know if my wife texted you or, Gene or Mike, these 2 other guys that we were all really close growing up. Texted you, he goes, but I just went to the hospital. They told me I had a mini heart attack. And you're like, holy shit, really? Yeah, I had a mini heart attack. And then we're thinking nothing of it, and they have to give him they want him 2 days. They kept him in the hospital, and they said they want to get a cardiogram. Maybe I could look it up in my text, but I'm too lazy to do it. I don't know what it's called when they test all your arteries to see what's going
it's like
on.
it's called either like an echogram or a cardiogram, something like that.
An echogram.
Yeah, that's one too. That's like
Is it really?
Yeah.
So he goes, I got to get one of those on Monday. And then we get a text from his wife saying that he got it done and he has to have triple bypass surgery done. 48 years old. In a day, he has to go in and get triple bypass. And I felt so bad because Gene and Mike, my two friends that I grew up with, said, we're going. Are you in? We're going to go. We're driving to D.C. They had to put him in a hospital. And they had to switch hospitals that he was in. Put him in D.C. He was probably in the Baltimore area. We're going down. Are you in? And I go, yeah, I'm in. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, it's a 5-hour drive. I had shows, and I got 2 kids that I got to watch, and then I ran it by my wife. She's like, I kind of need your help. I don't know, that's a lot. Those guys that are going, your 2 friends that are going live 2.5 hours closer than you do. So I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I was the first time in my, well, maybe the second time. I did have one of my comedian friends pass away a few years ago, and a year ago, and I did a podcast all about him. But still, he was a comedian friend, and not like this. This is a guy I grew up with, and it was the first time in my life that I felt it was like a brother. And it was the first time when this went on with my friend that I thought, like, I'm probably all over the place as I'm explaining this story, but I saw a movie this week, and I wrote it down. Let's see if I wrote it down in here, what the hell the name of that movie was. Really good movie, too. Knowing me, I know I wrote it down somewhere. Fuck. I'll See You in My Dreams, actually, is the movie. And it's about this older woman, whatever. And Sam Elliott is in the movie. He's fucking amazing. That guy's so good. He was so good in this movie, I'll See You in My Dreams. This older woman loses her husband, and then she's single for 20 years, and she meets Sam Elliott. I'm not going to tell the whole movie, and he's really good in it. And there's a line where she just says, I feel like there's more. I just feel like there's more. And I told my wife last night at dinner, I go, I have that. I said the line from the movie, and I said, I feel that. I don't know what the more is, and somehow, I don't know if you ever do this, I always connect it to where I'm living, and I'm like, there's some comedy. I don't have any friends that live 5-10 minutes from my house. There's no card game that I go to. When I grew up, we used to play cards together on a Friday night. And like I said, I almost started crying when I said this to my wife yesterday. I go, Mike having to get a triple bypass, I said, it felt like my brother was getting a triple bypass. I go, it's just different than some of my friends that I have up here. I go, I meant it when I said I love you to him. Like I was like, and yeah. I'm living far from these guys. So I just felt, I don't know if it's a friend disconnection, and sometimes I try to explain to my wife, I think it's a career heartbreak. When you're in a comedy career and you want to make it, and like Amy Schumer, who I totally respect, and I think she's super talented, and her movie's coming out today, and her name is everywhere right now, and 1 million people we know are in this movie, as I'm forgetting, Trainwreck, which is going to do insane numbers. It got like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm sure it's an excellent movie. I can't help but go, motherfucker, what the fuck? Like, I get my heart broken. And I'm like, am I turning into Mark Maron where he used to hate Louis C.K.? I'm just like, I'm happy for these people, but I get so annoyed. And sometimes I think, like certain comedians that just go, fuck it. Like Pete Corielli, to me, is a hilarious comedian. And he all of a sudden made a move and just moved to Buffalo, where his wife's from, and had a kid. And sometimes you get to that point, you're like, why am I living near New York, getting my heart broken, paying an insane amount of money when I could go live somewhere cheaper? It's like, you know what I mean? But then you feel like you're giving up if you go do that. It's confusing.
Yeah.
Am I even asking a question? Am I all over the place?
No. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, where it sounds like you're saying that
I feel incomplete.
Yeah, well, you're starting to think about, reminisce about friends and where you're from. And, I think your friend having a triple bypass is definitely a wake-up call, because it really shows the mortality of people. But now in this situation, it makes it more real for you because it's the mortality of a kid that you treat like a brother that you grew up with, and nobody's getting any younger. And you're just thinking, what are you doing?
What am I doing? Yeah, like Russ Maneve always says this, and it's funny when he says it. He goes, dude, the next 10 years in comedy are going to be a bloodbath. That's what he always says. Because this is when comedians are going to start dropping. They've been dropping a lot in the last 5, so imagine in the next 10.
It's funny you say that. I started noticing that people that I was coming up with, or not even people that I was coming up with, even younger, like I'm just starting to notice that some people are dropping off. But I look at it like this. I was talking to an agent last night, and we were talking. It's like, you have to go back. You have to go back to this about why you first did it. I don't know what your intentions were when you first did it, because me and you weren't friends, because you're the generation that's ahead of my generation. Your generation of stand-up is in the generation of the guys that are like, 10, like I'm the like a generation or two behind you. So me and you didn't hang out when you first started. You were a guy that I saw on TV and saw your name in the city, like when I was like year 1 in, year 2 or 3 in. But number one, when I see something like Amy Schumer doing what she's doing, I know a couple things. One, she's got an amazing work ethic. She's very talented. And number two, I'm not competing against her. That's not what I'm competing against.
Well, yeah,
and
I don't worry about it. Sometimes I get crazy where I'm like, I'm not even jealous of Amy Schumer. Sometimes I question. I'm like, how come I'm never the guy that anybody puts in any of their stuff? Like when you see 19 comedians that you're friends with in somebody's projects, and you're like, I've never been called once to be in somebody's sketch, to be like, you're doing this AOL thing with Giannis Pappas. You're doing some sketches and stuff like that, and it's good. I've never been that guy that everybody like, well, let's get Joe to be in our thing. Like, it just never comes up. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Do people not like me? What is my mistake?
No, I think that you live far away like I do, but I also think that, you have kids, and you're not a guy. You're not a guy that stays and hangs at the club and has like cliquey stuff, nor am I. The only reason why the Giannis thing came up with me, to be honest, was because, we have the same manager, and they were like, hey, you know what? As far as like comedy and sketches and sports together, and then they knew that I wrote for the ESPY. Speaking of the ESPYs, I wrote for an ESPY Awards once before, so they kind of knew that, and I got in because it's kind of in my wheelhouse. But other than like Giannis and Burr and a few other people, yourself, that I would actually call up and invite to a barbecue where my family's at. Like, I'm not that guy either who's like always in a, I have like a handful of guys that I like in comedy, 5 guys.
But you'll go to the Stand when you're doing a spot, and you'll stay till 2:30 in the morning.
I mean, I don't stay till 2:30 anymore, but I will stay. Like, if I do the 8 o'clock and the 8 o'clock is done, I'll usually hang out, eat, and like be there like almost during the whole 10 o'clock show.
That's what, what, as you're saying that, it's making me think, this isn't always, but a lot of these comedians that I can think of that are clicked with the right comedian, they get in their stuff. Some of it is because they were the host at that club a lot. And when you're the host, which is good about the host is the MC, everybody. You go up, you do 10 or 15, and then you bring in all the comedians up. So you have to be there every night. Like this guy, Mike Royce, used to host every night at the Comedy Cellar. Now, Mike Royce is like, he is a head writer on like everything that Ray Romano does. Ray Romano put him and hooked him up with shit. And then you think of William Stevenson. William Stevenson, a guy who's big in comedy news this week because all this shit that happened at the comic strip. But he's another guy that hosts everywhere, and you always see him popping up in Louis C.K.'s television show. Because maybe it's and you, Giannis Pappas, you host a lot at the Stand. At least you were for a while. You have to be there. Yeah. When you're there, you have to be there, and you develop. You definitely when you're. That's a really good point. I never thought of it like that. I don't host there all the time. I host and do spots there mixed. But I'll tell you, when I do host, it gives me relationships, because if I didn't host, I probably wouldn't be as cool with the Gary Goldmans and the Judah Friedlanders and all these guys that like now I'm really cool with, and you get to sit there and you get to talk to them during the night, or, you know me, there's a smoke shop next door. So I'll go in there, I'll grab a stick or something. I'll be outside and I'll be, smoking on my cigar in between comedians, and everybody's outside talking. And yeah, so you kind of build that rapport with guys. And then when you do come in for a spot, you feel like you could stay and you hang out. But, it's kind of like when you were at the Cellar.
the stand is kind of like, and that's what everybody's telling me, like, Burr and Bobby Kelly and everyone's like, the stand is it almost seems like right now there's two clubs. It's either the stand or the cellar. And obviously I'm a stand guy, and, that's my cellar from the way, the cellar was years ago with people. You're just there, you're hanging out, and these are your buddies. But I'm still not like, hey, man, all the comedians are going to play basketball Saturday. That's not me.
No.
Like, that was never me. Like, guys, we're all going to so-and-so's house to watch the fight. Well, don't get me wrong. I'll do that very occasionally, but I'm not a cliquey guy, and you know that.
Well, to alter the subject slightly, whereas people that aren't comedians, I think, could relate to this, and I don't know if you guys listening have this happen in your lives, but I feel that my connection, where when you're connecting with someone and when you're not connecting, I always connect with the person that's not going to be the big superstar. It's always the guy who's struggling. Even when I'm on a project, if I'm in a television show or in some independent film or something like that, the person I get along with the most is like the fucking sound guy. Like, it's never the director or the writer. It's the loser. Not the loser, but it's like, it's the lower man on the totem pole, and I don't know why that is. You almost do you have to be phony to make friends with the higher ups? It's got to be obvious when you're on a low part of the totem pole.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's why LA is really big on the whole fake niceness and the kiss in the ass, because everybody is playing that game, so it almost became culture. I think that, like, a guy like you and me, we, at the end of the day, we could hang out and we could have a drink or two, but we got to get home to our kids. We got shit to do. We have houses. Like, the percentage of comedians, like, everyone's like, wow, you got a house, man? How do you afford that? Or you got a family, you got a house, and your personal life's doing really good. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? You may get 4 more spots a week than me, or you may get 3 more spots a week than me, because you're living here. I have to set my schedule right. It really is a balance for what we're doing, and I think the balance of life that we have definitely makes it a little more, I guess, difficult to be cliquey. Like, you see people get on TV shows of their friends because they just hang out with them constantly, nonstop. That can never be me.
Right. I hear you. I know you're on a time constraint, so I want to get to one question here at the end, and then I'm going to take on some of the more subjects that I have. Some of them. I got another few. I'm all right for a little bit. You are? Okay, because I have more stuff on my list here, and then I have a question. We'll go to the question, and then we'll go to a couple things on the list. One of the questions someone asked, and I think you'll have an answer for this also. Chris P. asks, hey, Joe, what goes through your head while you're bombing on stage, and how long into your careers did it take to figure out the best way to work your way through eating it?
That's funny. I was just in a documentary, and somebody just asked a question about bombing and what it's like to do that, and what are you feeling.
What's going through your head when you're bombing?
The only thing that bothers me about bombing now, because, I think me and you are both at the point where we know we're funny. We've been doing it long enough, and we just kind of know, listen, there's going to be some nights where you don't have a great set, and it's easy to kind of just make it go away and say, hey, man, tomorrow's another day, like a day at the office. The only thing that bugs me about it is knowing that the person who paid money to go to that show is not getting the best me. And I'll give you an example, and this is what I said in the documentary. Somebody saw Mickey Mantle crying at his locker. You might know this story, but Mickey Mantle was crying at his locker at a game, and one of his teammates goes up to him and is like, Mick, what are you crying for? Or he was just so upset, and he was just fucking down. And he said, I went 0 for 4, man. And he goes, dude, you're a baseball player. He's like, yeah, you probably tomorrow, you'll hit a home run the day before. Like, what are you worried about? And he goes, yeah, but there's a kid in there who can't afford to go to a game and finally was able to go to the game, and it's probably the only time he's ever going to see me. And he saw Mickey Mantle go 0 for 4 and strike out. And, like, that's kind of what goes through my head when I'm on stage and I'm not doing what I know I can do. And I'm very competitive. I want to be the best comedian in the room. I want to be the best comedian on the lineup. And I don't give a fuck who's on the lineup. I don't care who walks in the room. I want to crush to a point where people are like, dude, that guy. And when I'm not that, and I know the crowd doesn't think I'm that, Like when the crowd's like, oh, okay, this is, when you don't want to ever feel like the weak link of a show. And when you feel like some people are going to leave thinking that, that's really shitty for me. And you just know they leave and you're like one of the guys that they don't, that's what goes through my head. And it's like, I'm not like, oh man, I'm a bad comedian. I'm not going to, because I'm just like, oh, fuck it. Things aren't working out. Maybe the crowd sucks. But just knowing people are leaving thinking you were the bottom of the show, that to me hurts the most.
What you just said just made me think, Chris, this is, if you're obviously a comedian that you're asking this question. What I've learned, and I probably didn't know this for a long time, and it helps now, is if you go to the guy who went on before you, how's the crowd? Because if you didn't get a chance to watch, you don't know. So either you ask the comedian, how's the crowd, or you watch how the crowd is reacting. If comedians are doing bad, and then you go up and do bad, you don't care. I don't care if everybody's doing bad and then I go up and I didn't do well. I'm like, oh, this crowd stinks. It doesn't hurt as bad.
That's a great point because you see all these good comedians struggling because it's just a tight crowd.
Yeah. And then you don't overly judge them, and then you just go up and relax, and you don't care, and if it doesn't go well. There's also a difference between bombing with your A stuff or you're going up and trying all new shit and it's not working. That doesn't, when you're bombing with your A stuff, that's when comedians, even Paul, you and I both, love to say, really? It's a fucking, I love your line, I always quote it. That's a perfect fucking joke.
Well, you're nailing this answer. I really think you are, Joe, because both points you just said I think is great. I think what you said just now, you nailed it, where it's like, if the crowd sucks for everybody, you don't care. And you don't care if you're going up there telling a brand new story you never told before, because in your mind, you're like, okay, I don't even know how this is going to go. So you almost feel like you're with them. Like, how is this funny? But when you start, throwing your gas, you know what I mean? When you start throwing everything you got that normally works and the crowd's not into it. But then I also say when that happens, I go, this crowd stinks, So you're right. I think when you get to be an experienced veteran comedian, you kind of can judge, taking a fucking hot one.
I'm also at the point where I can tell, because if it's a 21-year-old crowd and I'm up there, like I'm doing like 15 minutes just on my trip to Israel right now, and I'm noticing it works the best at this club called the Broadway Comedy Club in New York City. And it was a club I used to never really kill at, and lately I've been killing there. And it's because I'm doing all these jokes about another country, and that is a very international audience. It's all tourists from all over the world. And now that I have material that's about another country, and
well, you're nailing it again. I think you nailed 3 parts of this question. No, you nailed 3 parts of this question, because you just made me think about, when I go to Stand Up New York, a lot of times Stand Up New York is amazing, but a lot of times Stand Up New York is people from, Belgium and people from Denmark, and people from like all of these places, and you go up there and you're kind of like they're not getting references. They're not getting American references. Right. They're not getting things. So you can't beat yourself up for that bomb, because these people just are getting, taken off the street in Times Square, and they don't get it.
Yeah, if they're 22 and in your head, I'm doing my set about my 2 kids that they're not going to relate with, and you're just like not going to veer, you got to expect not as many laughs. Okay, so that's your question answered, Chris P. I hope that helps. What else?
Nailed that question.
I nailed it. Let's see. I'll let you decide what subject, because and if Paul doesn't get to these, I'll get to these after Paul myself.
I could do one with you, and then I got to run.
Okay, I'll let you pick. So I saw the Amy Winehouse documentary. I watched Chef with my wife, and she didn't like it. Artie Lang and I, that's what they're going to want to really talk about, because Artie Lang and I kind of made up, and everybody's been wondering what the hell's been going on with Artie and I, because I haven't been on his podcast in like 3 months, maybe 4 months. I don't know. It's been a while. My tweet about A-Rod being up for the best comeback, which I thought was ridiculous. I'm not going to tell you what my tweet was. There's that one. And that's it. Which one you like? You want me to re-say them?
I'll go.
My wife not liking Chef, the Winehouse documentary, Artie Lang, and I. making
I'll
up,
let you talk
and
about
A-Rod on the ESPYs.
the Artie Lang thing. The Artie Lang thing is something you could talk about on your own. I'll say either the Winehouse or the because I watched this Kurt Cobain thing, but I would
saw
say
that
either
too.
I would say either the Winehouse or the A-Rod. Your choice.
Well, you're a big Yankee fan, so I should definitely talk to you about the A-Rod thing, and you'll probably disagree with me, but you might not though, because I tweeted out and a lot of people retweeted it. I said, "How is A-Rod getting a nominated for best comeback when he was kicked out of the league for cheating? Like, you shouldn't be up for some award when you make a comeback after being kicked out of the league. Like, it's like Ray Rice is never going to be up for best comeback."
That's a great point. I can't argue that. I mean, I will say I was never an A-Rod guy ever.
I don't
but
think I was almost at A-Rod's 3,000th hit, and I can tell you,
I was
as being-
too. I was
you were-
2 games before.
I
Yeah.
was 1 game before, and
Yeah.
they not intentionally, but they threw him
Oh,
4
that's
balls
right.
in a
You
row.
told me that. Yeah.
I had my son. We were standing up screaming. We're waiting for the 3,000th hit. We think we're going to see it. My brother was going to leave the game early, but I said, "You can't now," because he's got one more at bat, and you can see a 3,000th hit. Once again, how I told you, there's emotions in sports. But I was there, and I felt it. There was a lot less emotions than should have been there at this guy's home stadium, and you could feel him. Like, people are just kind of clapping because it's 3,000, but it's not the same as if it was Derek Jeter going for 3,000. Not even close.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And like I said, I was never an A-Rod guy, but I do love the year that he's having. I love the fact that everybody that said he was done, and he's kind of giving like a fuck you, and he's actually buckled down, and he's really playing good baseball for the Yankees.
I'm ADD and cut you off here, but I don't mind him having a great comeback. But I do mind you nominating him for best comeback on this emotional great story ESPYs awards that they're trying to do. Like, what? Was that a popular subject? Am I the only one to be saying this? That can't be. This has to be huge.
I agree. I think giving him a comeback thing is weird. It's like, comeback from what? His punishment? You know, you don't get out of jail. You don't get out of jail and get a fucking merit for like not killing somebody like, you know, a year after getting out of jail.
He murdered people, but now he's not murdering.
Yeah, he's out of jail. He didn't murder for 14 months. Let's throw him an award. No, it's like you. I love that point because it's like he put that on himself. He had to come back because of the situation that he put himself in. So I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like I said, I root for the uniform. You know, you got to root for the uniform. You know, I mean, I'm sure there's, if somebody raped the guy on your team, you don't obviously like the guy. You think the guy's a piece of shit, but you're not going to not ever root for your team again.
Right. I gotta be honest. As an Eagle fan, when Michael Vick was the quarterback, and I'm not even an animal guy, I had trouble rooting for him as much as I would for somebody else without a tainted past.
And I agree with that to this extent. You did that. But when he threw a 60-yard bomb,
I clapped.
No, when he threw a 60-yard bomb, and you're hoping to God that receiver catches it, you're going to go nuts when that guy catches it.
I will, but it's much different when you watch your guy who shows character, like a Derek Jeter. I'm trying to think who a Philadelphia Eagles character player would be. I mean, I can think of, like, Brian Dawkins was a guy that I loved when he was on the Eagles. I mean, this guy was a fucking animal on the field, and he just, I don't know, I respected him. It was just different. I'm trying to, Mike Schmidt as a Philly, like, they weren't pieces of shit. Well, this is bad that I'm not saying that Michael Vick's a piece of shit, but I mean, the crime that he did is just it's kind of bad.
Yeah.
I'll let you go. I forgive you, but come on, we're not giving you awards.
Yeah, I think that the A-Rod comeback thing, I do think that that's a little weird. It's like you kicked him out, and now he's getting a comeback award. Maybe because he was. I mean, the only thing I could think of is maybe because he's hurt. I don't think there was a lot of comeback. I think the ESPYs had to give it to somebody. I don't think there was a lot of other nominees. That's the other thing. Like, they're probably going down the list like, should we get A-Rod? I mean, I don't know. There's only like 3 other guys and nothing's good enough. So I think that they kind of had to. I don't think that there was other great comeback stories. But I'll tell you this before I go, because I do got to run.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this. I'm really big on, me, and I don't know what's happening to me, but the older I get, the more I get into conspiracy theories, and the more that I really believe, I believe that I'm just a guy. When there's smoke, there's fire. If a lot of people pick out things that aren't right with something, and then you really look into it, I actually think there are things that aren't right. You know, that being said, I mean, we could sit here and we could talk about aliens, and we could talk about all these crazy things that people talk about, JFK, 9/11, all those things aside. But I will tell you that, you know, the one weird thing about that Kurt Cobain documentary, and, you know, you brought up the Winehouse thing, was when I was watching it, it's like you got to look at evidence, and I don't know. I mean, I know that there was like a suicide note and stuff, but the fact that there was no, and I think the doc is called Kurt and Courtney. I don't know if you saw it, but it's on Netflix.
That must be a different one. There was one on HBO that I saw.
He's got like two out. The one you saw was a recent one that they played at the South by Southwest Festival, and that's a newer one. But there's an older one, where an investigator was going around because there was a lot of speculation that Kurt Cobain was murdered, and Kurt Cobain was murdered at the hand of, or the hiring of Courtney Love. And Courtney Love's album came out like the week that he died. Her album dropped. Also, and listen, I don't want to sit here and say, you know, false accusations about somebody. I'm just telling you what the documentary was about and the questions that the documentary raised. But then it was like, you know, she was constantly talking about his will weeks before he died, or like a month before he died. Then another musician who was almost like this, like big, almost like like he would do like porno / rock video stuff, and he was like this guy, and he was nuts, and they went to go talk to him. And he said that Courtney Love offered him $50,000 to whack Kurt Cobain. And in the process of the documentary, the guy died. They found his body on the train tracks and all kinds of weird stuff. But the weirdest thing about it was the shotgun that he used had 0 prints on it, not even his own. And like, so the guy supposedly put a gun to his fucking head, and the investigator, one of the lead investigators to this day, says there's absolutely no way the guy killed himself. But the lead investigator was like, how can you have a shotgun shooting and there's not even a print, forget a print of a killer, his print is not on it. So that has to indicate, that absolutely indicates tampering with that weapon after the trigger was pulled. Now, could it have been somebody that found him and got scared and wiped it? Maybe, but it doesn't sound right. And all the talk about, and then her father was saying stuff. So again, I'm not going to sit here and speculate, but watch that documentary and watch what was going on in his life and the things that he was doing. I mean, it was just really, really weird, and it was really interesting. So you brought the Winehouse thing up, and so that's why I just wanted to bring that up.
Wow. Well, I'll have to check out that documentary. I only saw the other one, and the other one was like so voyeuristic it was uncomfortable, you know, to the point where they're just like hanging out with cameras on, and she's taking her clothes off and walking around. I don't know if you saw it, but it's kind of odd. It's like one step away from them just turning the cameras on in their bedroom and having sex. Like they're just hanging out for, like, the whole movie's like just this home video almost, and it's really good.
Dude, here's the thing, dude. I guess this happens, but like, if you were to kill yourself,
this is a dark podcast we're doing.
Would you do it with a fucking shotgun? No, like take a couple of pills, put on a movie. You know, like. Not a movie, but you know, not a good movie, but like, you know what I mean? Just take some things to relax you and you fall asleep. Like, to go to the measure of just putting a shotgun to blow, that's something weird with that, man. Yeah. I don't know.
I had to explain the word suicide to my 7-year-old son this week, which was very odd. He was telling me that these kids at camp just will, like, they think it's funny and they'll just go, hey, yeah, suicide, and I'm like, do you know what? I had to say something. I go, don't scream suicide. He's like, why? I go, you don't know what it means, but it's bad. And then I explain to him what happens, and some people have something wrong with their brain, and it makes them very sad. Thank God my son goes, I love life. He goes, I love life. Who would want to do that? I go, well, somebody sick whose brain's not working.
Right.
Thank God he didn't go, yeah. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Well, listen, terrible. Brother. Yeah, no, that's
awesome. We'll leave on suicide. Enjoy your day.
I'll see you I'll see you at Levity tonight, man. I'm gonna run a couple of minutes. I appreciate it. I'll see you there.
And we'll see a movie after. Do you know what movie you want to see?
Yeah. We'll check it out. We'll see what the time is. I mean, I still got to do my podcast. Maybe
Right.
I'll bring my stuff and you'll be on mine.
Okay.
Well,
I need plugs because of my my dates at the university, or not university, the New Haven gig, Joker's Wild.
Speaking of plugs, real quick, just for your listeners and everything, guys, I'm going to be headlining Laugh Boston next weekend, July 23rd to the 25th. They saw me there with the All In tour. They asked me back to headline. I'm extremely excited about it. And I just went on that run with Burr when Burr did those 19 straight shows at the Wilbur. I was there with him for 16 of them. So for you people out there that enjoyed the show and everything, instead of me doing 20, I'm going to be headlining Laugh Boston the 23rd to the 25th. So come out, get tickets. I heard tickets are actually being sold, so I'm excited about it. Check me out at paulvirzi.com and go to my Twitter at Paul Virzi. Tonight I will be with the legendary Joe Matarese at the Levity Live in one of my favorite comedy clubs in the country. So come out and check out the Virzi Effect podcast, which will be out later today. Thanks, Joe.
All right, man. Later. Have a good one. There he was, the great Paul Virzi, with 1,400 plugs. That was a lot of plugs. Now you can tell that he was on Skype. You could probably hear the difference in the mics. So I had other stuff that I wanted to talk about. I don't really know how much of it we can get into. The Winehouse documentary that he brought up, go see it. It's excellent. Really liked it. She was a super talent. Really sad story. I didn't even realize, and it was obvious that she was bulimic. Didn't even realize it until I saw the documentary. I'm like, oh my God, it's obvious. So sad. So talented. Such a shame. And what can I say? Great documentary. Highly recommend it. My wife not liking Chef, that hurt my feelings. Am I the only one out there? I love that movie. Maybe nothing's happening, but I don't know. Maybe it's the artisticness in me. I enjoy just watching him cook, even though it's a movie and he's probably not doing it, but it looked like he was doing a lot of it. And it was fascinating. And I love food, and I love watching people do that kind of stuff. Same reason I like distress painting and all that. When I see somebody good at it, or when I've been doing it lately, and it makes me lose myself in what I'm doing, I feel like I'm making a piece of art. If you want to go see my distress stuff and some of the other painting that I've done, go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/the Joe Matarese. You can see all my stuff up there. And like I said earlier at the beginning of the podcast, you can hire me, and I'll do some stuff. Another thing that I'm reaching out, if any of you fans would like to hire somebody to work with you on stand-up comedy, if any of you guys are comics or interested in comedy, I'm giving these classes via Skype, hour-long one-on-ones with just me on Skype. If you're interested and you want to hire me to do that kind of stuff, go to matarese67@gmail.com. That's my email, my direct email. Email me if you would like to take one of those classes. And if you have feedback for me on my podcast, go to matarese67@gmail.com and send me some stuff. All right? What else is on my list here? Yeah, it was weird that my wife didn't like that movie. I don't know. She was like, I'm getting kind of bored. I'm like, I don't know. I love watching nothing happen. Is that weird? I love movies that almost nothing's happening. The movie that I just described earlier, that is on my list here, I'll See You in My Dreams. It almost doesn't feel like a movie. Like, I like those kind of movies where it's like minimal instead of over the top. Over the top never brings me in. You know? Okay, I think you do know. So check that out. I mentioned Artie Lang, I'm sure you guys, and I should probably end with this subject. Artie and I spoke for a long time a few days ago. He's on his way to the Montreal Comedy Festival. He's probably up there already. I know he's doing all the nasty shows, and they're recording something for Showtime. He's hosting one of the nasty shows. It'll be on Showtime. And Artie and I had a little situation, and we worked it out. We'll talk about it on his podcast when he comes back from Montreal. You guys that listen to my podcast and listen to his, and you probably listen to Nick DiPaolo's too, you've been asking me over and over again. Now, it had nothing to do with money, okay? They might have made it look like that. It did not. There was a situation. We worked it out. I will be on his podcast again to talk about it in great detail. Like I said, artiequitter.com podcast for all you subscribers to his podcast. When he gets back from Montreal, I will go on his podcast, and hopefully I'll start doing it again. It won't be 4 days a week, but it might be 1 or 2 days a week. Okay? As long as he'll have me. I love doing Artie's podcast. Love the guy, and wish him well. Okay? I hope I explained that. I can't get into details until I'm sitting with him and his mics are on, and we can explain it in a way that we're both there, so it doesn't sound like we're talking behind each other's back. You didn't hear him talk about me on his podcast. You won't hear me talking about him without him there. You know what I'm trying to say? I think you do. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I think it was a good one. Thanks to Paul Virzi. Go to paulvirzi.com if you want to see all his stuff. Come and see us live tonight at Levity Live. What am I saying this weekend? No, I will be at the New Haven gig, New Haven, Connecticut. If you live in that area, I'll be at Joker's Wild on the 31st of July and the 1st of August, okay? Go to joematarese.com. The link to buy tickets is right there. The new splash page, website coming soon. All the stuff you need to buy tickets, listen to podcasts, make donations. It's all on joematarese.com. The Twitter, the Facebook, everything. It's all there. Follow me. Okay? You guys, I hope by me trying to fix me, I help you fix you a little bit. I love my wife. I love my kids. Keep downloading the podcast, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Okay? And some nice prayers in your head for my friend Mike. Little Mike Gerlach. Guy, you're my brother, Mike. I love you. Wishing great things for you. Speedy recovery. It looks like I'm looking at my phone. Looks like your wife just texted me a picture. And I love you, man. All right? Yes. Prayers for my friend Mike, everybody. He's a good man. All right? Love you guys. Talk to you soon.